Consider the following for evaluating emotional health, maturity, compatibility, and willingness to nurture a relationship. Because the key to a healthy relationship lies in mutual respect, understanding, communication, and support. And if you're both willing to engage openly and invest in the relationship, then there is a strong foundation. And of course, keeping in mind our fundamental foundation that we were made in God's image and upholding the principles of respect and dignity of both parties at all times. Now, these aren't exhaustive, but they are a good basis to start with for an introduction. Communication skills. Can they express their thoughts and feelings openly? Are they willing to listen to you without interrupting or becoming defensive? Now, bear in mind, this is going both ways. So when you're considering if they meet any of these, you're also having to consider yourself. So I'll start again. Can they and can you express your thoughts and feelings openly? Are they and are you willing to listen to each other without interrupting or becoming defensive? Do they and do you handle disagreements respectfully without resorting to name calling or aggression? Now, emotional availability. Are you both completely disentangled from any previous relationships? Are you both sure that you are not on the rebound from a previous relationship? Are you completely clear from past relationships? Because nobody wants to be dealing with someone who is having pictures or phone calls or appointments. And when I say appointments, I am not talking about things that involve children, because if you're co-parenting, that can't be avoided. But we're not talking about people who are always running to the rescue of their ex to the discomfort of the current partner. We're talking about people who are not taking phone calls in secret and having those phone calls away from the hearing of the current partner. Of course, we cannot say that you must alienate yourselves from your past relationships, but if you're going to have to communicate with them, then all the communication has to be open so that the current partner is always in the know of what the conversations are, and they must not be personal or intimate, because we have to take into cognizance the feelings of the current partner. You're completely devoted to your current partner without the interference of your previous partners. So we have to be sure that both people are emotionally available. We don't want people worrying about your conversations, your meetings, or your plans. And in fact, you shouldn't be having plans with your previous partners when you have a new partner, because you cannot be carrying both of them along in a new relationship. So this must be completely clear. So are you completely emotionally available and willing to share feelings with your partner, and vice versa? Do you allow yourselves to be vulnerable with each other? Do they allow themselves to be vulnerable with you? Can they provide emotional support when you need it, or do you need to go seek it somewhere else? Can you provide emotional support for them when they need it, or do they need to go seek it elsewhere? I cannot overemphasize that we're not supposed to be checking just the other person. We're not supposed to be checking just our partners. We also have to be sure that we ourselves are able to provide these things. Unless they say, I don't care if you're not emotionally available, but then of course, then that's not a relationship, right? It's just a situationship. We're talking here about level-headed, normal, sane people, sane couples in a relationship. So everything that I talk about here, make sure that you're checking yourself to see that you measure up as well, because these are the requirements for a healthy relationship. Now, if you're not looking for a healthy relationship, if you're just looking for someone to get yourself involved in, then it doesn't matter. But if you're looking for a respectful relationship, and that's all that I expect from everybody who is in this community, this is a community of people who only want respectful relationships with their dignity intact. So whatever goes for the goose goes for the gander. Right? What's good for the goose is good for the gander. That is our foundation here. The first law of nature, that what you want for yourself, you must be willing to do for the next person. Love your neighbor as yourself, and we'll all be fine. Now let's talk about trustworthiness. Are they trustworthy? Are you trustworthy and consistent in words and actions? Do you keep your promises and commitments? Do they keep their promises and commitments? Do you respect boundaries and privacy of the other person? Do they respect your boundaries and what you have declared to be your privacy, as long as it is not demeaning or disrespectful of them? And we're not talking about keeping your phone to yourself. In the relationships that I talk about here, we're not condoning people keeping their phones and phone conversations away from each other. Because what is it that you're hiding from the person who is supposed to be your partner? Is it your medical history? Is it your financial history? Is it conversations with other people? Because the world today tells people that they have the right to keep their phones private, and that it is interfering and trespassing by the other partner if they look at the other partner's phone. That is not true. We need complete transparency if we're going to have trust in each other. We don't have to listen to the world. Remember, do not be conformed to the ways of the world, because those give room and opportunities for things clandestine. They give room and opportunities for people to have secrets. Therefore, they can have secret relationships that you are not aware of. We are not talking about those types of relationships. We don't do that here. Here we believe in complete transparency, because it is only with complete transparency that you can have trust, honor, and dignity of each other. Of course, there are times when people feel the need to keep things private because they don't want their partner to know what's happening in their family. But you see, we cannot even condone even that here. That is why you must pick a partner who is mature, who is healthy. Because the reason why people would keep family secrets from their partner is because the partner may be someone who would use those secrets against them. But here we're talking about healthy people. And if your partner is healthy, then they are always about what's in your best interest. They're not going to use information about you against you. They're not going to use your family secrets, your medical history, your financial situation against you. So let them know. And if there is anything that they are uncomfortable about, for instance, with medical and financial situations, then they're not the right partner for you. Unless you have chosen by yourself that you're ready to sign up with someone who is not the right partner for you. Because this is what we have in a lot of relationships. And that is why we have the problems that we have. Of course, we're not saying that we're going to find angels. But there are basics that must be in the fundamentals, in the foundations of our relationships that we cannot gloss over. Listening to the world and listening to their standards is what puts us in the wrong relationships that eventually lead us to misery, because we are sold the idea that we cannot find that person. Yes, we're not looking for angels, we're not looking for saints, but we must have the basics in place. Let's begin to recalibrate our minds and think for ourselves. We don't have to subject ourselves to the world's standards, because the world is not there to look out for us. Who is the owner or God of the world? You need to ask yourself that. So once you're subjecting yourself to the standards that the world presents, then you already know what's going to happen and there is no surprise. Now let's talk about trustworthiness. Are they trustworthy and consistent in their words and actions? Do they keep their promises and commitments? Do they respect your boundaries and privacy? What about you? Do you do the same? Now, these people must be people who, in respecting your personal boundaries, and you as well in respecting their personal boundaries, emotional and physical, it means that you're also both comfortable with discussing these boundaries openly, without fear and without resentment. Let people share with you the reason why they like or do not like, or agree or do not agree with things, and you can both come to a compromise. Because you both need to be able to support each other's independence and personal space. And if there is something that you disagree with, that you feel should not be so personal, that you feel should not be off limits to you, or they feel shouldn't be off limits to them, everybody should be able to say and speak openly. And then both can reach a compromise. Now, what about conflict resolution? Do they avoid escalating conflicts unnecessarily? Do you avoid escalating conflicts, or do you thrive on conflicts? Because some people just enjoy being cantankerous. And two people who don't mind being cantankerous can get along fine, just fine, enjoying getting their kicks from their fights. But if you don't like escalating conflicts unnecessarily, then you also need a partner who is doing the same, who feels the same, who lives by the same code, who does not believe in unnecessary conflicts. Unless you choose otherwise, then you know what you're signing up for. Can you approach problems calmly and constructively? So you see, this is only for mature minds. Can you both approach problems calmly and constructively? Are they willing to compromise or find mutually beneficial solutions? Or are you willing to compromise and find mutually beneficial solutions? Or is it
your way or the highway? Let's talk a little about self-awareness. Do they have a good understanding of their own emotions and triggers? Do you have a good understanding of your own emotions and triggers? And are you open to self-reflection and personal growth? Can you admit your mistakes and take responsibility for your actions? Same with them. Are you both people who are open to admitting that you are limited in some things and that you need to take responsibility for some mistakes and some actions that you've taken? Because if you do not want anyone to ever see you in the wrong, if you're never going to be able to admit to making mistakes, then there's going to be problems. Empathy and compassion. Are they able to empathize with your feelings and perspective, and are you going to do the same for them? Do they show care and concern for others, and not just you? Because if you're thinking that as long as this person shows care and compassion for me, or care and concern for me, then I am just fine. But you see, when we are limiting things to only ourselves, we must know that if this person isn't showing care and concern for others, this is a person who doesn't care or have concern for other people. And so you are not special. The same way that they feel about other people, when they don't feel that other people's cares or interests matter, is the same way that they're going to be feeling about you. But right now, they cannot show you that because they have to put on their best behavior for you. They have to pretend to be someone else, just so they can win your affection, your time, and your trust. So it's always important to see the way that people treat other people who are not in a relationship with them. There is a man that I am speaking with right now, and I could literally say that he got himself involved with just an evil creature. And at a point, I had to ask him, because right now she's turned his life upside down. I had to ask him, you cannot tell me that you're surprised with the things that she's doing now. You cannot tell me that she didn't show you the signs that she was this type of person. And he said, I knew, because she did this and that to this person and that person, but I didn't think that she would do these things to me. See, a lot of people fall into the mistake of thinking that because they've been so good to a person, they're going to be able to turn their back to that person and be safe with that person. Forgetting that sometimes people need something from us, and they're going to pretend that everything about us matters to them, because they need to keep getting what they're getting from us. But while they're doing that to us, and we're seeing them not caring basically about other people's basic needs, then that should tell us the kind of people that we are. There are people who will only do things while they are being seen. So if they would not care about total strangers, or just other human beings, if you don't have a basic decency to be careful about other people's feelings, be considerate about other people, then that is exactly who you are dealing with. So don't be confused and don't be deceived into thinking that they'll never do those things to you. And right now, maybe they're even infatuated with you. Maybe everything they're doing with you is truly because they are so infatuated with you and they mean everything they're doing with you. But the bottom line is, what people do generally to other people, generally in the world, the way they move through the world, the way they move in the world, that is the basis on which you judge their character. And know that anything that they are ready and able to do to every other person, if they can do those things to you, are you going to be okay with it? And that is the way we judge people. That is the way we gauge people. I almost could not believe that I would have to say this, but I have to because, like you know, we shouldn't think that other people are reasoning at the same level or standards that we are. That's often a mistake that we make. Now we can't be doing that. So now let's talk about accountability. Do they take responsibility for their actions and decisions and own up for when they've made a mistake? Are they willing to apologize when they make a mistake? Are you willing to apologize when you make a mistake? Are you able to quickly take responsibility for your actions and decisions when you make a mistake? Are you both people who learn from past mistakes so that you can improve on future behavior? Or do you just stay stuck, stubborn, and determined that everything you've done, even when it has yielded the wrong outcomes, do you just stay on learning and refuse to change because you want the world to change for you, rather than acknowledging that you didn't know better and that your choices were wrong and a mistake? Ability to compromise. Are they flexible and willing to meet you halfway in decisions or agreements? Do they understand that relationships require give and take, not just one person's way? And do you understand that yourself? Are you flexible and willing to meet them halfway in decisions and disagreements? Are they open to hearing your needs and desires even if they differ from their own? What about you? Are you open to hearing their needs and desires even if they differ from yours? Emotional stability. Do they maintain emotional balance even during difficult times? When problems arise, do you maintain emotional balance, or do you just go all off on the people around you and expect them to understand because you're facing difficult times, and then when you come back you want everything to be all back to lovey-dovey? Or are you able to maintain emotional balance? Are you both able to stay calm and grounded during challenges, as I just said? Are you both able to exhibit signs? Do you both exhibit signs of emotional maturity like patience and temperance? Or does someone throw a tantrum? Mutual support and encouragement. Do they cheer you on in your personal and professional endeavors? Do you cheer them on in their personal and professional endeavors yourself? Are they genuinely happy for your successes? Because many people have seen that their own partners are the ones who are not happy for their success. And it's not because they don't want to rejoice over the successes. Sometimes it is. Some people just cannot stand someone else being the star of the moment. It is something personal with them because maybe they feel little, maybe in past they've had experiences where they were belittled, or they're just not able to validate themselves, and they want validation, but when someone else is getting it, they can't stand it. And so, they're jealous, they're envious, or they don't want to be envious, but they're afraid that now you won't have that high of a regard for them. Some people are genuinely afraid of that, that when the next person close to them is doing well, that person may not have that much respect for them anymore because the person feels better. And with that can arise feelings of envy and jealousy. That's why, again, you need people who are emotionally mature and healthy to be in a relationship, and not everyone, unfortunately, is that. Do they encourage you to pursue your goals and grow as an individual? And would you do the same for them as well? Or are they just okay for you to be down there? Are you looking for someone to be down there so that you can feel better than them? You need to both be able to encourage each other to pursue your goals and grow as individuals. Shared values and goals. Do you both share similar core values such as honesty, loyalty, respect, consideration, generosity? Otherwise you're going to be knocking heads together. What are your long-term goals like? Do they align? Career-wise, family, and lifestyle? Child upbringing, rules and regulations, discipline? Do you view life similarly? Faith, religion, law-abiding, security, greed, impatient, a growth mindset, ambition, family, love, unity, compromise, working together, domineering, selfishness? Do you question things or do you just accept things? Because some people don't even look that deep. Some of us in this world, we just accept things the way they are, and some of us question things. So some of us are, what's the word now? Some of us are people who just blend in. We just conformists. Whatever is going around or going on in life, we don't really question it or give it our own weight. We are happy to just accept things, where some of us are non-conformists. And somebody who is a pure conformist cannot do well with a non-conformist. You're going to be butting heads. Because these brains are like the left brain and the right brain. You have to be able to meet somewhere in the middle. Are you able to do this? So do you have a shared vision for the future that excites both of you? That's actually an important one. What is the shared vision? Because it'll keep you going when things get tough. Because you know that you have a goal, a common goal, that you're both working towards. Can you or can they provide reassurance when needed without being controlling or avoidant? Does anybody feel insecure generally? And are they able to share why? And are they able to, or are you able to tone down or to manage that insecurity for them and for yourself without putting them down or without being put down? And what about respect for differences? Do they accept and respect your differences, whether in interest, background, or opinions? Because, yes, we can have varied interests, backgrounds that are different, opinions that are different. But if I respect you, I can respect that. While we may not think the same or agree on those things, I respect you enough to respect that this is your opinion. This is the way that you see this. It doesn't make me feel that you are any less. So when there is that mutual respect, you can still have the differences without looking down on the other. And that is all we need. But you see, sometimes people really cannot understand the way one's brain works. And they're constantly bewildered or annoyed or irritated or disgusted that this person reasons in this way. And yet they get into a relationship with them. Which means that you're constantly being irritated by the choices that that person makes. You've got to watch that very closely. Respect for differences. So, do you appreciate your individuality? And are you able to express it freely, both of you, without being judgmental and being open-minded on the areas where you don't agree? Commitment to the relationship. Are they invested in the relationship's growth and success? Because this is again one of the surprising things that some people are with the person and they can see that one party seems to not be committed to the relationship's growth and success. In fact, sometimes there is a party who is always saying, I'm going to break up. I'm going to end this relationship. It's like a constant threat. But the one who really wants that relationship to grow, the one who is committed to it, complains and is unhappy to hear this over and over and over. And yet they keep trudging on, believing that love conquers all. Love does not conquer all where you are loving from only one side. If you have a boat and the weight is on one side, it's going to capsize. You cannot take a journey with someone who is unwilling to go on that journey. When you find yourself in the desert, you're going to be all alone fighting the difficulties in the desert. So you cannot embark on this journey with someone who is not committed to the growth and success. If somebody is always pulling the ropes, making it difficult for the relationship to progress, then you've got to sit back and tell yourself the truth. I know you really want this relationship sometimes, but it'll hurt even more when you started and invest in it, only to still have to give it up later, by which time you would have lost so much. And in fact, you wouldn't even want to give it up without struggling. You would struggle and struggle trying to recoup that investment. You don't want to let it go. You want to ensure that that investment makes sense. But in the end, you're losing yourself and shrinking yourself. So you must see that you're both equally interested in the relationship's growth and success. And don't think that you can pull the weight for both of you. No, you have to both be equally interested. Do they prioritize you and the relationship, even during busy and challenging times? And do you prioritize them and the relationship during busy and challenging times? Because if you think that you're going to put someone and the relationship on the back burner so you can deal with things that are more urgent, then it tells you that that person or the relationship isn't of high priority. And that is a fact that we must stop overlooking. We can't give excuses that people are writing an exam, or that they are traveling, or that we have an emergency here or there. Because when we really want a relationship with someone, we want them to be with us even in those times when we're facing those things. They will never cease to be a priority. At the most, we will talk to them in a way that encourages them to stay by, to stay put, and please let us deal with what we're dealing with. We're not going to just shove them in the back corner and expect them to understand.
Financial responsibility. Oh, and before I get to that, and if something is so tough that it's taking so much of our attention, then we've got to be willing, or they've got to be willing, to put in that effort to nurture and maintain a strong bond, even during that time. We've got to see it practically. Now let's talk about financial responsibility. Do they manage their finances responsibly as far as you're concerned? Do you manage your finances responsibly? And are you both willing to address financial issues maturely and openly? Are they honest about financial situation? Are you honest about it, including debts and financial obligations? And I'm not saying that somebody can demand to see your bank account. And if somebody demands to see your bank account, then something must have led to it. Because if somebody is worried that you may be coming in while being on the red into a relationship, that's a valid worry, because they need to know that you are not coming to lay all your financial burdens on them, and you're not coming to them because of money, and vice versa. So there must be something that would have led to it, and they need to explain, why do you want to see my bank account? I really don't mind showing it to you because I want to be open, but I'd like to understand why it crossed your mind. And they can't just make up anything out of thin air. They have to explain, because if I have a good job and I don't seem to be in any debt or anything, why does someone want to see my bank account? Perhaps they want to show me theirs. Are they also willing to show me theirs? And in fact, what's going to be our plans regarding finances? Are we going to be doing things jointly? Are we going to have a joint account from which we pay bills? Is somebody going to be wanting somebody to submit their earnings to the other? Is somebody going to be planning to be the one managing our finances? Are we both going to be carried along? Because in today's world, we need to know that our finances are intact and that we're not being used for what we're able to provide, and that someone isn't going to be taking advantage of us. We can even talk as far as life insurance and all that, because we can't be too careful in today's world. And nobody should feel bad to have these conversations, because some people do have negative intentions. So having these conversations openly and above board ensures that we know that we are not walking into a trap. I'd recommend that even before going too far, it's a good idea to have, if these people are considering getting married, it's actually a good idea to have prenups in place. And if we're both above board and trusting each other, then there is no fear when we have a prenup. There is no fear to having a prenup, but that's up to you. As long as in the process, there's nothing that indicates that someone is trying to take advantage of the other or put the other at risk. So we both need to practice transparency when it comes to shared financial decisions. Physical and mental health awareness. Do they take care of their physical and mental well-being? Do you take care of yours, or are you careless about them? Are they willing to seek help when needed, whether from a therapist, doctor, or support system? And what about you? Are you willing to seek help? Do they encourage healthy habits like regular exercise, balanced eating, and stress management? What about you? What about your hygiene? How aware are you? Would you be willing to take correction or advice or suggestions from this partner? Are they also willing, without being shy, to take from you? Because you should both be able to contribute to each other's improvements and health awareness. What about social support system? Do they have a healthy and supportive network of friends and family? What about you? Are you both willing to introduce each other to your social circle and integrate into each other's lives? Because people who are keeping their social circle and family secret do this because there's something unhealthy going on with them. It doesn't matter if they think that those people are the ones who are unsafe. There is something unhealthy with people who have relationships where one side cannot meet the other. It's usually because one side don't want one side to hear some things that you're keeping secret. So why are you keeping things secret? You must look into this. Because most of the time we found that people who do this have some negative stories that they're telling one side about the other, which aren't true, and so they don't want the other to find out. A person who's above board has no fear of what two parties on their two sides will be discussing about them, because they know they have nothing to hide. So do these people maintain friendships that are not detrimental to the relationship? Again, if really there was something wrong with one party, then they really would have by themselves also cut off that relationship. They wouldn't keep maintaining it while keeping their partner away from it. A healthy person is able to create boundaries between themselves and relationships that are negative. They wouldn't only just want to keep their partner away from the negative relationship, they themselves would keep themselves away from the negative relationships. So they won't maintain it and be keeping their partner away. Again, that's why I keep talking about people who are mature, emotionally mature. And remember, we're talking about people who also emphasize on godliness. A person who has the complete knowledge that they were made in the image of God is able to deal with their relationships. They're not going to maintain a relationship because they're afraid of offending those people. That is why, again, I must remind you to not be confounded. Do not, the very component, that's the most important part. Be mindful of who you get involved with. That they're able to understand that they're just meeting you, and even you know that you're just meeting them. You need to take time to understand this person, which means that you have to allow the relationship to unfold naturally without rushing and without forcing outcomes. Don't force outcomes with people that we don't know, because we don't know what the consequences would be. Balanced independence and togetherness. Do they value time together without being overly dependent on you? Unless you don't mind, what about you? Unless they don't mind, because sometimes two clingy people may happily meet each other and they want to be happily clingy together. Again, do not be conformed to the standards of this world. In fact, forget that I used the word clingy. I wish I could erase that, but I'll just leave it here because we have that word already existing, being used for relationships today. Because it's even wrongly used when people really always want to be around their partner, and there is nothing wrong with that. Somebody can adore the other person so much that they always just want them. Maybe somebody has felt so hungry for companionship and love, and they're finally happy that they finally got this person. There is nothing to be embarrassed about there. But you've just got to be doing it with the right person, because if you're doing it with someone who misunderstands it or someone who's going to take advantage, then you're going to get yourself in trouble. So you've got to see that your energy is matching, or that at least they welcome it, or that they can manage it, and vice versa. Are they okay about spending time apart without feeling insecure or jealous? This is very important. We shouldn't be happy that our partner is always jealous when we're with someone else, unless it's the type of jealousy that just indicates that they wish they were the one having the time with us, and vice versa. But if it's a type where it's going to lead to altercations and quarrels all the time, then that's not welcome. Because we should be able to be with someone that we trust, so that our minds will be at rest when they're apart from us. If we're not doing anything that is indicative of our lack of loyalty, then a healthy person should have no reason to be filled with jealousy and anger. And if one is filled with jealousy and anger, then they need to go work on that, get healthy, before coming back to be in a relationship. Sometimes these things are justified because some people have had a relationship where they found out to their own surprise that they shouldn't have or couldn't have trusted that person. But you see, that is when we do not start with the right foundations from the beginning. That is when we see things in the beginning and we decide to overlook them instead of speaking up, as we should, as people who are bold, as godly people. We should speak up about who we are, who we stand for, and what we stand for, and what we like and what we don't like. And when we see that something is working against us and is not on the same page with us, we should stop, put everything to a stop, and not be too afraid to lose that person so that we continue to accept something which ends up eventually biting us in the butt and showing us that we shouldn't have stood for that in the first place, because it was already indicative of the fact that they were not on the same page with us. Because that is what a lot of people do. They want to give a chance again and again and again to something that has already shown that it's not really loyal to them. The truth is, when those things happen, we really have no one to blame. We can't blame those people. We can't get upset with people because we've given them a chance again and again and shown them how much we care, and yet they kept betraying us. It is already clear to us that these people do not want to be with us, but we are forcing them to stay to reciprocate our love by giving them another chance again and again. So we actually make it difficult for people who are looking for a way to leave us. We guilt trip them by giving them a chance again and again when they didn't even ask for it. What we should do in those circumstances is we should actually release them and tell them, okay, I see that you are not happy here, and I think that I want to release you to go where you are happy. That way, we've given them the opportunity to leave. And even if they want to stay, we want to refuse it unless they are insisting because that is really, really what they want. Not that they are insisting because they want to deceive us into not feeling bad for thinking that they really do not want us. We have to resist it so badly that if they're insisting, then they must show us with proof that they actually have what they want with us. And that's why they're planning to stay back. In fact, I'm going to make a note so that I can have a full video discussing this one. Right. Now, it's important in keeping a balanced independence. It's important that we and our partners have hobbies and interests that are outside of the relationship. And the reason is because we have a life to live, and sometimes we may be busy and our partner feels neglected. But if our partner has other things doing, they can busy themselves with those things, and vice versa. So that one is not expected to be tending to another human being 24/7. Because if we don't have any hobbies or interests outside of a relationship, we may feel lonely and we may feel neglected. And also, it helps us to bring new perspectives, things to share with our partner. We bring things that are outside of us. When we meet with other people, when we engage in other activities and other things, we have other conversations that we can bring into our relationships and diversify things, bring some interest into the relationship. Because a one-dimensional person is actually a boring person to be around. So sometimes this is why people who don't have anything else going on sometimes fall into thinking that as long as I am nice and as I am good and kind and patient with my partner, then I am a good person, I'm a good partner, and they should be happy to have me. But you see, we are human beings and diversity is the spice of life. Which means that the same way that we read novels and we watch television and we go to concerts and we have parties is the same way that our partner also needs a human being who brings different tastes and different flavors to the relationship. And if you don't have any interests or outside hobbies outside of a relationship, you're never going to be bringing anything new, no new ideas into your relationship. And pretty soon, you become as invisible as the walls in the house. Nobody thinks about the walls in the house because they remain the same pretty much. So you don't want to be like a wall in the house. You want to bring some flavor. This is very important. Being good and kind and patient, those are good. But those are going to quickly be traded if we don't add some spice to life. And here's another thing that can take away some of the spark in the relationship. It can actually even wane sexual interest because you don't do anything, say anything, or be anything that can excite the partner. And then the sex life becomes boring and dead. So you're not a full person without any outside interests and hobbies that you must bring back to share with your partner, unless you're dealing with someone who is also content with that. I must write this down. This is another important conversation. I'm going to have to do a full topic, a full video on that. Bring something from outside the relationship. Very important. You're going to have yourself to blame if you have nothing, unless you're sure that your partner is content with someone like that. Now, let me talk about mutual respect and let's talk about mutual respect and criticism. When they critique you, is it constructive or is it just harmful and dismissive? And what about you? Do you speak to them in a way that is hurtful or dismissive when there is something that they've done or said, or an opinion that they've shared, or a decision that they've taken that you don't like, that you disagree with? How do you critique it? Do you do it lovingly? Or is it hurtful and dismissive? And do you or do they handle feedback with maturity and without defensiveness? Are you able to differentiate between constructive criticism and personal attacks? are they able to differentiate between constructive criticism and personal attacks? Sense of humor. Or maybe I should spend some more time talking about constructive criticism and personal attacks. You know what? Maybe I should actually go and talk about these. I'll go back over this video and pick each of these topics to talk about. That's what I'll do. Okay. So I think I will, yeah, that's what I'll do. All right, let's talk about sense of humor. Or should I keep talking about constructive criticism and personal attacks? Because maybe I should talk a little more, I should expand a little more on it right now. Because now, some of us may not just like criticism. And once it's given, we feel like we need to defend what it is that we said or did, or the decision that we took. We need to pay attention to the way this criticism, it's not even a criticism, it's a critic. A critic is different from criticism. Critic is telling us about something that we've done that we could have done better, so we can do better next time. It's actually not telling us how bad we are. So let's pay attention to the difference. And when someone gives us a critic, it's usually because they are hoping, wishing, and wanting for us to do better. So coming back with defensiveness is really not the way to go about it, because that leads to us missing the point of the conversation, and it's actually a place where we should be saying thank you. And it's not a place where, because some of us actually resort to saying, but you do this and that in return. But that's not what this is about. It is a point to reflect on, and a point for, and a point of reflection. That's what a critic is about. And what we should keep in mind when someone critiques us, when our partner critiques us, or when we critique a partner, is that this is about someone who cares. So the best answer when a critic has been given is actually thank you. Oh, thank you for pointing out. Can you share with me how this, that, and that? Or, oh, thank you for pointing out. Now I see. Oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting angle. Well, that's an interesting idea. Oh, I never thought of it that way. I appreciate you telling me. Right, let's talk about sense of humor. Do they have a good sense of humor, and can you laugh together, or do you just not care? I can't see who will say no to a sense of humor. Can they make light of challenging situations in a way that doesn't trivialize your feelings? Can you make light of challenging situations in a way that doesn't trivialize their feelings? Do they show an appreciation for playfulness in the relationship? And do you show an appreciation for playfulness in the relationship? Do you not want to play? Do you not miss your childhood? Playfulness is very important. A sense of humor is very important in a relationship. Now, what about the ability to apologize? Are they able to apologize sincerely when they hurt you or make a mistake? And are you also able to apologize when you make a mistake? Are you able to apologize sincerely? Because the person who cares about the other person, this is needless to say, you actually care about the way that you made them feel, and you want to apologize because you don't want to be the one who is bringing any type of discomfort to them. You don't want other people to bring discomfort to the person that you care about, and you don't want to be the one, least of all you. And when you're owning up to your actions, do you avoid excuses or deflections? Do they avoid excuses or deflections? And then, after the apology, can they actually make amends in meaningful ways? Can you make amends in meaningful ways? Not just end it at an apology. Are you attentive to their needs, both emotional and practical? Are they attentive to your needs, emotional and practical? Do you recognize when you each need comfort or action? Do you? Do they? Are they willing to make sacrifices for the benefit of the relationship? Are you willing to make sacrifices for the benefit of the relationship? Because a person who isn't willing to sacrifice signifies that this thing isn't worth that much to them. There is nothing that you can show concern and care about if you're not willing to sacrifice for it. And again, I must caution us. We cannot get upset with people when they do not show a willingness to sacrifice for the benefit of a relationship. They're simply telling us that this isn't of priority to them. And we cannot force people to make a relationship a priority to them. This is why instead of complaining, when we start meeting or knowing a person and they're showing that they're not invested in the relationship, instead of complaining, what we should do actually is end it. Because otherwise, it means that we're forcing a horse that isn't willing to the stream. So that when they disappoint us in the future, there is no surprise there. We actually saw it. We see these things and we overlook them, and instead of acknowledging to ourselves that this person doesn't want to go along with us in this relationship, we say to ourselves and to them instead, you are not working hard on this relationship. Of course they can't work hard on something that they're not interested in. Why does that go over people's heads? That's why many times I tend to say that we create our own pains because we're not willing to be honest and authentic. Authenticity again. There we go again. Now let's talk about honesty and transparency. We're talking about honesty here. Are they honest with you about their feelings, actions, and intentions? Are you honest with them? And if you feel like they're not being honest with you, it is not for us to hold people at gunpoint to force them to be honest with us and to be transparent with us about their intentions or their actions. Because let's face it, we're living in this world and there could be people who are right there wanting to take advantage of us. How can they now be honest with us about their intentions to take advantage of us? It is for us to see this person does not seem to be honest with me about their intentions and actions, and therefore I will withdraw. I will take a step back so that I don't get hurt. But instead, every day, we see people complaining that this person doesn't seem to be honest about their intentions or actions. It's an irony that you're waiting for someone who has dishonest intentions to be honest about their dishonest intentions. Now, how much more crazy can that get? Okay, do they maintain transparency, especially regarding past relationships or difficult topics? There is joy in sharing. Anybody who is withholding past relationships, maybe they've heard it from all the lying gurus that are out there who say people shouldn't share their past relationships. And of course with that, there's a caveat. There are things that you don't tell people, but not after you've indicated that you're seriously. For instance, I would say that a person who has been cheated on several times in their past relationships has to be careful, or has been maltreated in other relationships, past relationships, has to be actually careful about sharing these things with new intending partners. Because we don't realize how creating this image that we're somehow less valuable to other people can transpire in another person's mind when we tell such stories. But then what's important is the reason for not telling the story. It shouldn't be because we're ashamed. It shouldn't be because we don't want them to get to know us very well. It's only because we have actually learned from those past relationships. And we know that we're not bringing the same things that led us into falling into those to this new relationship. That is when we can authentically withhold that information without it being detrimental to us. But if we withhold that information for other reasons, now this is another thing that I have to go into, another thing that I have to talk about. Because if you've grown from whatever led you to those types of relationships, if you've grown and you've learned, there must have been something that you contributed to create relationships where you were cheated on or mistreated. You had a contribution there. We must admit these things to ourselves. This is all part of being mature and healthy and ready for relationships and for better experiences. When you haven't learned what your contribution was to the last disappointments that you faced, then you haven't grown. But when you've grown, you're actually choosing more mature people. And if you've chosen more mature people, then eventually you're going to be able to share your past with them. But you don't share your past because you want to show how you were a victim or you want to show how the other people were bad. You share your past as something to share experiences for both your benefits, to share your learning. But this is something we have to be very careful about, because we're not all going to have the same standards. We're not all going to have the same levels of maturity. So again, if you hold back on this type of information, that's not you not being transparent. That's not them not being transparent. But it all depends on the reason why. Can they have open and non-judgmental conversations about uncomfortable subjects? Now, what about communication patterns? Do they have passive-aggressive behavior or manipulation in the way that they communicate? What about you? And are you comfortable addressing issues directly instead of avoiding or bottling them up? Same thing with them, because conversations and communication is very important. When you avoid or just bottle them up, you create more issues. You want to iron out your differences with conversations. Do they use I statements and avoid blaming you for their emotions or actions? Do you use I statements and avoid blaming them for your emotions or actions? Because when we care about someone, we really don't want to be blaming them. Instead, we want to come to a resolution of whatever the disagreements are, and not with blaming them, to make them know that they are the fault, they are the cause. We're always looking to how we iron out our differences so that we can move forward together. Adaptability and flexibility. Are they willing to adapt to changes in life circumstances or relationship dynamics? Can they adjust their plans or expectations when needed without becoming frustrated with us? What about you? We need to be able to demonstrate flexibility in problem solving. Now, what about emotional reciprocity? No, I don't need to go over that. If you're not getting reciprocity, I already told you, this is not the relationship for you. So I'm not going to go into that. So, it's important to look at a person's healthy relationship history. It's important that we have a history of healthy relationships, whether with family or friends or other romantic partners. And the same thing goes for them. Because we need to know that somebody has been able to maintain some healthy relationships. Otherwise, the person may have a problem emotionally balancing. Because we all have friends, family, and hopefully we've had some romantic partners. So if we're not able to have maintained some positive, healthy relationships, then maybe we are not able to self-regulate or to learn our lessons. In which case, how are we going to avoid repeating those negative behaviors? So we must be open to discussing past relationships and what we have learned from them. Now, personal responsibility for happiness. We have to both be people who are responsible for our own happiness. Only when we're able to be happy by ourselves can we now work in a healthy relationship. Awesome. If we're not self-sufficient and able to bring happiness to ourselves and able to enjoy ourselves by ourselves, our own company, without feeling that the quality of our relationship is all that is required for us to be happy, then there is some imbalance going on. So we must watch that. What else? Shared interests and activities. Of course, we have to have some common shared interests and hobbies and activities that we can enjoy together, and be willing as well to try new things and explore new activities to keep the fun going and enjoy each other, of course. And with that, the one last thing that we can talk about is the openness to redefining traditional relationship roles based on mutual needs and preferences. For instance, household chores, career, decision making. Are we both willing to adapt in our roles in the relationship as circumstances evolve? Because this is 2024, and as we're talking about mature minds here, hopefully we are talking about people who recognize that there's a lot of social conditioning and social engineering that has happened in the world, and some of these things that we see to be the norm are not necessarily the norm naturally, because they are naturally. So that we're able to adapt to circumstances, because what matters the most is us having a successful and committed relationship. If we're not going to hold each other down to roles, and we're going to be happy to always work together, to cooperate with each other for the success and benefits of the relationship, then we're on the right path. So think on these and make sure that you reflect on them. Watch this video over and over and use these things as a reference point until I start to talk about these topics on their own, one by one. If you find this helpful, hit that subscribe button. If you haven't, give the video a thumbs up and share with your network. Enjoy the rest of the video if it hasn't ended. So long now. Bye-bye.